welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and I've got a treat for you today because I'm thrilled to have Jeetu Patel, Cisco's Executive Vice President and General Manager of Security and Collaboration, joining us today. And one of the reasons I'm excited about this is Cisco Live 2023 is coming up. And last year, one of the key stats I remember Jeetu saying on stage was that from this day forward, 98% of corporate meetings, at least one person would be working remotely. And of course, since that event last June, we're now looking towards AI-driven solutions in hybrid working spaces. And Cisco have been leading the charge in revolutionizing the way we connect and collaborate. And they're also bringing some fantastic updates to their Webex platform. So I invited him on the podcast today to talk about a few things before Cisco Live. See if we can get a few teasers of him too. And one thing is for certain, though, we will talk about how these AI-fueled enhancements are set to enhance things like video quality during calls, even with low-end cameras or poor bandwidth. And yes, we do have to mention generative AI capabilities, what is being incorporated into Webex Connect, and also some of the responsibilities around these new technologies too. So buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you're listening in the world, I'm going to beam your ears stateside so you can learn more about Cisco's exciting AI-driven updates and how they're making the hybrid workspace better. So a massive warm welcome back to the show. For anyone that missed our conversation at Cisco Live last year, can you just remind the listeners with a little of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Neil, thanks for having me again on the show. It's great to see you. And I'm Jeetu Patel. I'm the guy that runs the security and collaboration businesses at Cisco. So EVP and GM for security and collab. And I've been here for about 3 years.
And it's great to have you back on. We did last speak on the show floor at Cisco Live 12 months ago, before anybody was talking about generative AI. But of course, now that's all anybody's talking about. So I've got to ask to start the podcast today, what are your thoughts about the speed of technological change right now? And has it almost inspired everyone at Cisco to up your game too? Do you welcome this pace of change?
Look, we've actually been working on AI for many, many years, but it is interesting to see what happened on November 30th with the generative side, like you said, with large language models and what OpenAI did, because it fundamentally created the next big kind of level of, illustration for the world, that the ability for a machine to understand natural language and reason is now actually at a very, very different level than what any of us had imagined, right? And it's I think it was a fantastic, massive step function up. And I think as a result, what's going to happen over time is you're starting to see that, my guess is that you're going to probably have scientific progress compounded anywhere between 500 to 1,000x over time. And it's going to be a continuous exponent. Like, you will constantly see it kind of just compounding on top of each other. And I think there's going to be massive implications of this in every aspect of our lives that we see. Like, the thing that most people underestimate about AI, and especially on the generative side, which is what all the talk has been about, is the amount of original insights that did not exist in the human corpus of knowledge that now start to get created. That's actually the truly remarkable part of it, so that machines will now have new insights that humans did not have. That'll then help us solve problems that we didn't know how to solve. So that's the upside. I think there's also going to be a real possibility of a pretty significant downside that we have to all be very cognizant of as we go into it, because it's not just all a bed of roses, and I think it's, we have to act responsibly. We have to make sure that we act in a bold way, but responsibly, like many talk about. But I do feel that that's an area where public policy and the public sector and the private sector will have to work closer together today than they've ever worked in the past, because, this will have to get regulated, and there will be some regulation that AI will need. And the policymakers will need to work very closely with the private sector on figuring out what's the right kind of regulations are as we go through it as well. So I think there's a lot of layers around what this is, but it is fundamentally going to be the next big platform shift that we will experience, as humans. I think it'll be just as big, if not bigger than the internet. And it's going to be a pretty profound set of innovations that come as a result of this.
100% with you, and echo the sentiments of everything you said there. And if I look back to last year's Cisco Live, one of the standout moments for me, and something I was thinking about on the way home from the event, I'll always remember this. I can't remember the exact stat. It was something like, I think you said 95% of meetings from this day going forward.
Now, 98% of the meetings will have at least one participant that's not in the same physical location as everyone else.
Yeah, wow, what a stat that is. And of course, since then, hybrid work models have become the norm across many industries. So I'm curious, how is Cisco, specifically through your Webex platform, how are you contributing to making that working model better than ever? We've had the journey of, hey, we can work from anywhere, but how are you improving and making that working model better now?
Yes, so we actually completely agree with you that the future is going to be hybrid. People are going to work in mixed mode. Sometimes they're going to work in the office. Sometimes they're going to be at home, sometimes somewhere in the middle. And, if you start thinking about what the possibilities are with technology, hybrid today is much harder as an experience than when everyone works remotely or when everyone works in the office together. And the reason for that is when you have 4 people in a conference room, 3 people not in a conference room, invariably the people that aren't together with everyone else start to feel left out. And, someone gets up and starts drawing on a whiteboard, and you aren't able to see everyone because someone's sitting all the way in the back of the room and you can't see their facial expressions. And nonverbal cues are so important to how we communicate with each other. And so those things are really important. So what we've worked long and hard on is how do you actually take away those barriers when people communicate? So, for example, there are 4 people in a room. Our technology is able to go out and detect where the people are and actually give you a close-up view of each one of them so that everyone has equal number of pixels on the screen and you don't feel like you can't see the person's facial expressions and body language. And that's something that we've had for a while now. What's gotten really interesting, though, is how do you reduce the fatigue factor when you're in these long meetings and they just feel like, oh my goodness, I'm just tired and I can't pay attention. So for example, when you think about a video meeting, a 2-hour video meeting feels very long. But if I were to say to you, Neil, do you watch movies? And a 2-hour movie doesn't feel as long. Why is that? Well, it's because what ends up happening is the camera angle changes every 5 to 7 seconds. And what that does is it gives you a refresh in your brain, and your brain gets reset cognitively. And so if you say, all right, if that's the case, what do we need to do to make sure that meetings can actually have a cinematic quality to them? And so we launched this capability called cinematic meetings, which literally allows AI to keep the angles fresh and change the way that the video gets curated so that you can change the angle of the camera. You can make sure that you actually have different speakers who can be in focus. You can have a zoomed out view. You can have a zoomed in view. And that quality makes it look like you're watching a movie rather than being in a meeting. And the fatigue factor goes down. And so we launched this capability called cinematic meetings, which is just like magic. And you're able to do this now because of AI, because of all the video intelligence that we've actually built with AI and the audio intelligence. We've merged those two together and been able to go out and create these kind of things. And those are the kind of things that we are working on right now, is how do you make sure that you can increase the immersiveness, reduce the fatigue factor, make sure that everyone has an equal voice, and do it regardless of whether they're physically together or not together. And in a way that completely takes away the technology and you feel like you're just immersed with each other in the conversation that you're in.
Wow, that's incredibly cool. And I suspect you and I can both remember a time where the home internet router had, 3 or 4 devices connected to it. But now it's not uncommon to have 100+ devices all competing for bandwidth, from smart doorbells, TVs, lighting, heating systems. Not to mention the moment you hop on that important work call and, I don't know, one child might be on Netflix streaming a 4K film, somebody else might be downloading a 50 gig game. And the reason I bring this up is one of the standout features that stood out to me was you developed something that enhances video quality, even when there's low quality cameras or low bandwidth. So can you tell me a little bit more about that feature and how it can benefit users? Because I suspect everything I just mentioned there, there'll be a lot of people nodding their head in agreement, because we've all been there, right?
Yeah, and this is one that we're working on, and it, in order to get evenly distributed across everyone will take a little bit of time. But this is a really interesting feature, which is what we call super resolution. And the thesis over there is, look, there's connectivity can sometimes be unreliable when you go into high latency environments. You might actually not have the right level of bandwidth or what have you. And that really impacts the quality of communications. And so we started thinking long and hard and go, what do you need to do to really enhance the quality of communication when the your internet connectivity is not quite what you need it to be? And we said, let's use AI for that piece as well. And so what we did was we said, well, let's start to defy the laws of physics. If I have a 720p image that I'm sending over, what can I do to reduce the 720p to just a thumbnail size image, send it over the wire? So now I have less to transmit. But then when I get it on the other side, I'm going to now upscale that image to 1080p. And so what started off as an original version of 720p will actually, through AI, get reconstructed at 1080p. And you will see a crisper image than what was originally being transmitted, even though the connectivity is bad. And it's only sending over, 120p and a thumbnail size image. And those are the kind of things that I think are super exciting that we are able to start doing with AI in the platform. And, it's the way that we think about AI is there's going to be audio intelligence so that audio quality can be world-class. There'll be video intelligence. There's going to be, insights that we get from data on how frequently you're using the system and are you on time and so on and so forth for personal insights. And then the last one that's actually the really big one right now that we're talking about is natural language-based, kind of generative AI. And all of those pulled together start to really accrete benefits where one thing builds on top of the other. So for example, we have built some amazing noise removal, noise cancellation kind of technologies with AI that allowed us to do way better speech to text than what anyone else can do. So our accuracy on speech to text is amazing. You can then take that and have that as an input into the generative model to say, summarize the meeting for me. And those are the kind of things that actually make it really exciting. Each one of these editions is actually really helping the next edition get to be even better. And so we are pretty excited about what the possibilities hold for AI in across a different spectrum of different kind of things that can be done for the user, where the friction is just going to go down dramatically compared to what you might even see today.
Incredibly cool. Just the fact that anyone can finish a meeting and have a summary of everything that was discussed, the takeaways, the who needs to action what, is a big game changer for me. And you mentioned generative AI there, and I have read that Cisco incorporated generative AI capabilities into Webex Connect. So is there anything else you can share around how that integration enhances the platform and ultimately the communication management capabilities for enterprises and any business leader that could be listening to this conversation today?
Yeah, I think, look, the way that I would think about generative AI is it's a whole different level where the ability to reason is going to be part of the scope of what a machine can do now. And what's actually really, really exciting is that these technologies aren't just aggregating human knowledge anymore, but they can now come up with original insights that didn't exist in the past. And I think that's grossly underestimated right now. There's new insights that are getting generated by these machine learning models that did not exist and humans did not know about, that machines are coming up with. And so when you start thinking about that, the scientific progress you will see is going to be 1000x compared to where we are right now within a very short window of time. And so you will see the most impossible problems that actually start getting solved with AI. And one of the areas that I feel there's going to be a huge amount of development is how does the user interface actually evolve for software? Because if you think about, I'm dating myself a little bit. When I started working on computers, I used to have MS-DOS and we have these command line prompts that we would use. And then from there, you got to a graphical user interface. So there was a command line interface to start with. Then we moved to a graphical user interface with Windows and Macs and all that. Then there came the touch interface, right? And now we are in the age where you will actually be augmented with a prompt interface, where you'll be able to just speak in natural language and then have a conversation with the machine. And I think those will have profound implications in software and how software evolves as well, because you will start to see a tremendous amount of simplification of how technology can be used by people. And every single one of these major waves that happen got hundreds of millions or billions of new users to come in and start using this technology. Prompt interface with natural language will be one of those other ones where you don't have to muck around and discover where things are within your product. It'll just be something you ask it, and it tells you the answer, and it just becomes a whole lot more natural in the way that you engage with a machine. And I'm excited about what the possibility is going to be over the course of the next few years, and in the innovation that we can all provide as a software community as a result of these innovations.
And of course, incorporating AI into the workplace at the pace that we are at the moment, it's starting to raise concerns around things like security and ethics. You've already mentioned the importance of regulation. And I think as we're talking about this today, I think the OpenAI CEO is in front of Congress at the moment talking about this very topic. So the question I've got to ask is this something at top of mind at Cisco, and how are you ensuring that AI is incorporated both securely and ethically? Because we've seen what happens when we move fast and break things. There seems to be a more belts and braces IT approach this time around. Is that fair to say?
It is, and it's a very important question that needs to be asked. And one of the things that way before OpenAI came about in the picture and launched ChatGPT, we've actually been working on a responsible AI framework. And that, keeps in mind things like how do you make sure that you avoid bias in the training models? How do you make sure that there's transparency for the user? How do you make sure that there's fairness in the way in which you'd go out and train models? Is there an ethical construct that's kept in mind so that you have ethical AI use? And so this whole notion of a responsible AI framework is something that every piece of software that we have that actually uses AI has to go through internally. And we think it's going to be very important only because these technologies have a lot of potential to do harm. They have a lot of potential to do good, but they also have a lot of potential to do harm. So you have to act responsibly. You can't just say, well, figure it out when it happens. And so we take it very seriously to protect people's privacy, to make sure that you don't kind of train on data. For example, in Webex, we don't train on real customer data. We actually train the model using, purchase data or synthetic data, and that's actually more important than just training on actual real meeting data. It's harder to do that because it takes longer. It's more expensive to do it, but we have actually made that choice because it's important to do it that way, because it actually protects the people's privacy that use our platform. And so those are the kind of things that we have to be very, very thoughtful of as we go about using these different technologies.
When I look back to my IT days, a lot of the challenges were around bring your own devices, shadow IT. IT were losing control. They could no longer control what was coming in and out. We know that once everything comes over the line, that is it. I would imagine that there'll be a lot of people working inside enterprises that are using Gen AI without thinking about putting company data in there, or the responsibilities or the dangers of doing that. And this is going to be happening under the radar at the moment, but I think a lot of IT departments will be waking up to that. So my question to you is, how can companies more smartly incorporate Gen AI into the workplace? And is there anything that you would advise that they should consider before doing so?
Firstly, I think the risks from the increase in sophistication of cyber attacks will also go up as a result of these technologies. So one of the things that you'll find is a malicious attack will be indistinguishable from a normal course of action. And you will need much more sophisticated security defenses to go out and depict that this is actually a pattern of an attack versus this is a pattern of, Neil just going about his day doing his job. And so I think you will find it. We've talked about a lot of different topics. There's a topic around ethics and responsibility. There's a topic around privacy. Yeah. There's a topic around security. And then there's going to be a topic around, fairness. And all of these things have to kind of be pulled together in the right way. So to your question on how are people going to use generative AI, one of the things that you'll also find is the kind of things that you can put into the model. Some companies might not want some of those pieces being put in the model. And so you might have some kind of egress DLP and some kind of filtering on the ingress as well, and what the AI model actually comes back with. And these will all be things that will need to get figured out. Like, I don't think there's perfect answers for all of this today. These are all things that are going to get figured out, but you will find that AI will improve our stance and posture of security. AI will also be something that improves the sophistication of attacks. And so we will have to make sure that defenses can better kind of defend against these modern day attacks that are going to be in the post LLM world. And then you'll also see, that there will have to be some kind of measures and protection put in place so that organizations don't inadvertently go out and have their users put sensitive data into a model that they don't want them to put. And in all of this, what you'll also need to keep in mind is right now, there's not easy answers around attribution with AI models. Neil, you create content for a living.
Yeah.
And you get paid for the content that you create for a living. And intellectual property is pretty important. How does that does an AI model at some point in time just get to go out and train themselves on any content that's available and then start going out providing insight? Is that fair to the content creator? There's going to be a lot of kind of interesting aspects that need to be thought through. And I don't think us as a society have all of these things figured out, which is why I think it's really important that policy and the private sector, the policymakers in the private sector work very closely together to figure out how to regulate AI.
Such a powerful point there. And I do appreciate we're on the run-up to Cisco Live 2023, where you've got a whole list of announcements under strict embargo. But I'm going to be a little cheeky here and say, is there any teasers you can share around innovative solutions or updates that we might be able to expect from Cisco in the near future? And again, ultimately to further improve that hybrid work experience we've been talking about today?
Without my people internally getting really upset at me, here's what I can say. In my time here, and probably in the past decade, the Cisco Live that's going to have had the most amount of innovation that we have ever done as a company. That's number one. Number two is, you will see categories get built of different markets that we are actually, we're announcing new categories where we're entering into. We're announcing new capabilities around all the things we've talked about today. And so I think we're very excited about, across all of our businesses in Cisco, there being this hyper innovative kind of, energy that's there. And it's been a lot of fun to have the past. I've been waiting for this Cisco Live for at least 2 years because there have been things that we've been working on that I'm really excited to bring to the market. So we're excited. I can't wait to hear your reaction once I see you on the show floor over there, hopefully.
Oh, I'm excited about that, man. You set the scene perfectly there. Well, a huge thank you for coming on here and updating us. But before I let you go, something I always like to do on the podcast is at the end, when we come full circle, is look back through our career. And, I would say none of us are able to achieve any amount of success without a little help along the way. So my question to you is there a particular person that you're grateful towards? Maybe they saw something and you invested a little time or just helped you get where you are today. Who would that person be that we can give a little shout out to?
Wow, there's too many people who actually whose shoulders I stood on. I would say that the person that I rely on every day. So one of my partners in crime that I have is a person named Jessie, and she actually is my head of business operations. And I don't take a job without her because I know that I would be nowhere near as successful as I can be with her. And I would say that she would probably be the person that is the obvious choice. But there's so many people, and so I Jessie has been an unbelievable contributor to me. But so have all the people that I've worked for. So have all the folks. My professors in college were amazing and had giving me a break so that I could actually get through college. So it's been a great ride. That could be a podcast in and of itself, Neil, and I'd have a laundry list of people.
I think that's a beautiful moment to end on. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'll add links to Cisco Live, where people can find everything and all those big announcements that are coming. I look forward to meeting you on the show floor after those announcements and maybe even rock out to Gwen Stefani with you. But other than that, just thanks for joining me today.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Neil, for having me.
So that was Jeetu Patel, Cisco's Executive Vice President and General Manager of Security and Collaboration, sharing some truly groundbreaking updates on the Webex platform and a few teasers too. And it's clear to me that having already attended 4 huge conferences in the US this year, AI is reshaping the landscape of our work environment. It is already enabling us to connect and collaborate more effectively. Even in the face of challenges like low quality video or limited bandwidth, these problems are being solved. So my conversation today left me at least with a better understanding of how generative AI can also be ethically and smartly incorporated into our workplace, and also paving the way for a more efficient and inclusive future too. But if you're going to Cisco Live this year, please send me a message at Neil C. Hughes on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or send me an email, techblogwriter@outlook.com. It'd be great to sit down with you and bring you into this conversation and hear your thoughts, your insights, whether that be on a podcast or whether that just be over a hot coffee or cold beer, whatever it might be. So stay tuned for more tech updates, innovations, and interviews with industry leaders in our upcoming episodes. I've got so many big guests coming up. It is quite exciting, I've got to admit, and I will be reporting live from Cisco Live. So I cordially invite you to join me again tomorrow, though, but keep innovating. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together. But thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.